All right, EntreArchitect community, it's 4 p.m. Eastern, which means it's time for the EntreArchitect Context and Clarity conversation for Thursday. No, Context and Clarity Live. Welcome. It's Thursday, August 18th. Sorry about that. If you just joined us, say hi. Let us know that you're here. Let us know where here is for you. Where are you joining this conversation from? If we've never met before, my name is Jeff. I'm in Indianapolis, and I come here every weekday afternoon at 4 p.m. Eastern. On Thursdays, I'm joined by Katharine MacPhail from Massachusetts. Welcome, Katharine.
Hi, Jeff.
Glad you're here with me today. Hopefully you can keep it on the rails better than what I've already done. So we'll see how this goes.
Pressure. Yep, I'll try.
None. It'll be fine. It'll all be fine. Hey, thanks for joining us. The reason we come here every weekday afternoon is so that we can find clarity around the things that matter most to you, the architect. It doesn't matter if you're the employee of a firm or you own your own firm. Maybe you said, hey, 2022 is my year and I'm going to start my own thing. And you're on the runway to starting that thing before the end of the year. It's mid-August. You've got a few months left to do something here. We're rooting for you. Maybe you have owned your own firm for a year or 9 years or 17 years, and you're starting to rethink or reimagine what that firm could or maybe even should be. All of the topics that we cover, one topic every day, they all fall under the broad umbrella of the business of architecture, and they're all the need-to-know topics for the success of small firm architects just like you. So thanks for joining us today. I see Chris Novelli first on my screen. He's over in Massachusetts. Welcome, Chris. That means Chris being first into the room means that he's the winner of today's John Kinney Memorial Crochet Bathtub Award. So congratulations, Chris. Glad you're there. Scott Thrift is over on LinkedIn. He says, happy Thursday from San Francisco. Welcome back, Scott. And Ed Shannon from Des Moines, Iowa. Some people call it Des Moines. Welcome back, Ed. And Jessica says she's not sure how it's Thursday already. I'm not either.
Me neither.
Actually, I do know. Yeah, I've been procrastinating on a really big deadline, so that means that time is accelerating.
We can thank you for that, Jeff, because I don't know how it got to be Thursday either.
Yep, sorry about that. That's on me. That's all right. Class starts Tuesday. It'll decelerate soon. She told Chris he needs to figure out that Concorde jet strategy. When we were talking about that during, I think, a Meet the Speaker interview earlier this week, maybe. Barry Reed, welcome back from soggy Scotland. Good evening to you, sir. Hopefully you have a drink that matches the sogginess, or at least offsets the sogginess. Ed says, Ed's replying to Ed. That's weird. It says that there on the screen. Ed is talking to himself. He says, hello from the great Midwest. Chris is still crunching the numbers on the Concorde scheme there. Nicole, welcome back from Arizona. And James Petty, he's over there on YouTube. Welcome back from upstate New York, James Petty. Let's see. Chris says Scott typed too much. He's got to keep the first one short in order for the win. So there's this whole strategy that goes on to be the first person in the room, because the first person in the room wins the highly coveted John Kinney Memorial Crochet Bathtub Award. This has been a competition for 2.5 years now. Chris is doing well. Scott's doing well, but there's some definite strategization going on. Strategizing. Yeah. I think I made up a word. Some strategizing going on there. Strategization.
Strategy, maybe. But anyway, I haven't gotten one in a long time.
That's the penalty for being here with me.
I guess. Maybe that's why I haven't gotten it. You're right.
There are a lot of people that want to know, how could I get Katharine's seat? You know, having Katharine's seat, being my co-host, there's no award for that. There ought to be. There ought to be a big award for that.
I think
there's
it's
no
its
bonus
own,
for that.
It's its own award, I think, Jeff.
Yeah, there's something crocheted going on there, definitely. But in a way, it's a crocheted penalty, I think.
No, it's fun. It's fun. So I have a question, though. This is a dumb question. You ready? We're going to kick it off with an easy one. What does crunching numbers even mean? What does that mean? Does that mean you're adding up numbers to see how much it's going to cost for the jet? Does that mean you're changing numbers to make it work? I mean, how does crunching come in? Maybe that's a good question or a bad question for Megan. I bet she knows the answer to that.
Well, are numbers really crunchy?
Right, exactly. Are they crunchy? I heard old aortas are crunchy. That's really disgusting. I'm sorry I brought that up.
Okay.
What am I talking about? Let's bring on the guests. To stop.
It's almost like we're talking about cereal all of a sudden.
Anyway, I don't know what crunching numbers comes from, what it means. When people say I got to crunch the numbers, I don't know what that means.
Well, we might be able to figure that out. We might be able to figure that out today.
I think it just means adding them up.
Yeah, I think we got the right guest for this. We're going to figure this out. Chris says math is math. Yeah, we were talking about that on Clubhouse this morning. Rod, welcome back from Louisiana. He says it's soggy there too. And Christian's joining us from Ithaca, New York. Let's see, Jessica says, I think it's a sound your brain makes while trying to figure out math, especially if it's Common Core math. But that's a whole other
We don't need to know what that is.
No, we don't. We're not going down that rabbit hole today. No. If you're joining us over from Facebook, right now you're probably commenting away going, what in the world are you guys talking about and why? But your comments are not showing up on the screen. It's because you are in a private group inside of Facebook. Facebook has these rules, these privacy policies. They don't let your comments or your name or your likeness out. So if you're commenting away, your comments aren't showing up on the screen and you'd like them to, there is a URL at the bottom left of the screen right now. It's chat.restream.io/FB, just like Facebook. Type that into your browser window, and a couple of clicks later, you can give Facebook permission to let that information out to Restream, which is this platform that we have here, that we use here for these interviews, these conversations. And that will solve all of your problems. You will understand what crunching numbers means. You'll understand a lot of things if you just type that into your browser window, chat.restream.io/FB, like Facebook. So give that a shot if you're over there on Facebook commenting away and nothing seems to be happening here on the screen. Adam Steiner, welcome. Howdy from Valparaiso, Indiana. Hi, Adam. Glad to have you back here. There's a connection between Adam Steiner and today's guest, by the way. Just throwing that out there. Yeah, I've been rambling on. Lost my place a few minutes. In the meantime, we have a special treat in the green room today that our guest is certainly enjoying. It's M&M ice cream in the green room today.
Nice.
But we've got to be careful. We've got to bring them out before it all gets eaten or melted or whatever's happening back there. I don't know. So with that, let me introduce our guest today. Our guest is a number tamer, maybe a number cruncher. I don't know. A number tamer that sees the future and creates light bulb moments for her clients. She's the anti-accountant whose superpowers begin where financial statements end. She's a virtual CFO, the author of the ebook, Getting Your Numbers Right, and the creator of Hiring for Profit. Megan Dahle, welcome to Context and Clarity Live.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, the ice cream. Sorry, I didn't save any for you. It's
there goes the after party. I don't know what we're going to do now. Well, I'm glad that the ice cream was delivered in its frozen form all the way to South Dakota in time for our conversation today.
Yeah, and no raisins. I appreciate that. Thank you.
So now everybody knows exactly what we were talking about in the before we went live here. Ice cream, raisins, all the important things.
Nachos.
And buffaloes, but we won't get into that. Great to have you here. I know that you have a fan club here.
Fan club or trolls? We have yet to decide, right?
No.
Well, we're going to figure that out. All right, we're going to figure that out as we go. Megan is no stranger to the EntreArchitect community. She's part of the Architects and Allies Mastermind group, and so I expect some of the folks from the Mastermind group. I know some of who is in that group, and they're here already, ready to represent. So it's great to have them here. It's obviously great to have you here. So thanks a lot for joining us today for a conversation about our firm finances.
Well, this is my pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me. This is going to be a blast.
I think it is. Greg is already volunteering that he's definitely a troll. So
okay, now what do I do? Because I'm supposed to get rid of trolls, so I am conflicted.
Well, I guess as long as it's appropriate, we can leave the trolls in the room.
Yeah.
Okay.
Megan, as I was thinking about what we would talk about today, and for those of you that are not familiar, context and clarity is a conversation that we have every day, every weekday. And the way that we map out our week is basically we say, hey, we're going to talk with Megan on Thursday for Context and Clarity Live. We're going to talk about finances. So we're going to shape our entire week around talking about the finances for our businesses somehow. It's one question every single day. So we've talked about knowing how much work we need. We've talked about the financial numbers that you track or you don't track or you should track. We've talked about knowing if we can afford to hire somebody or if we can afford not to hire somebody or, those types of things. And so as I was thinking about this conversation today, I'm like, yeah, I want to know along those lines, how much can I pay myself? How do I make more profit? And how do I know when and if, so on and so forth, I can hire the help that I need? But maybe we need to take half a step back and say, what are the things that we really need to be thinking about in terms of our business that lead up to these conversations? Does that make sense? Why are these numbers important to begin with, I guess?
Absolutely. And there's a certain order of operations questions that I ask my clients, and the first one is actually like, what do you want? What do you need? And I'm not talking like in terms of your business or anything, but I've come across too many times people overshoot, right? Like they lose track of what they actually need and want in their business or in their personal life. And then they get wrapped up in the everything else in the business. It's got to be bigger. It's got to be more. It's got to, and like we've overshot and we're working too hard for things that, oh yeah, that's not where I was. So the first step is, what do you want and what do you need? And let's back into what's going on now, right? There's a reconciliation between that and the status quo. I gotta find between the status quo and what do I want and need. So like the numbers help tell the story and without like, we got to find the focus on the right thing first. Like set that stone in the ground, that touchstone that you can always come back to and be like, oh yeah, that's right. I don't have to do this thing. I want to do it because I enjoy it.
What would be an example of something that people want or need? You mean, are you talking about like paying for a wedding or going on a trip or stuff like that?
Yeah. So I actually start with what I call 3-dimensional goals, because people are always like, this is how much I want, this is what I want to do. This is when I want to do it. And they manifest and they think about it in the things. But the part that people lose track of is like, how much money do you need and when, and can we protect that along the way? So it doesn't just magically appear in 2 years, but you are purposefully making money towards that, protecting the cash towards that particular goal along the way. So it doesn't become 2 years from now and like, oh, I'm just going to push that deadline out a little bit farther. So it's having a holistic approach. What do I want from my business? What I actually want to be doing? What is it producing for me and my family personally in the change that I want to make in the world? And not just more profit, work, bigger, more employees, more work.
I love that. I mean, I think that really resonates, as you know, but I think this really resonates with our community, which is primarily small firm architects, because you said you talked about numbers telling the story, and I think Chris's comment earlier, math is math, right? When we were joking about that, that's a reference back to, we were talking about Common Core math on Clubhouse this morning. Math is math, but you're talking about giving meaning to these numbers. And I love that, because many of the businesses that are represented in our audience were started for a reason, right? That has to do probably with family, a lifestyle, freedom, all sorts of reasons. But I love the fact that, like you say, your magic starts where the financial statement ends. There's more to it that we've got to pay attention to the numbers.
Absolutely.
We've got to know numbers.
It's like a backstory. Like your financial statements tell you everything that's happened up to today. And math is math, sure, unless you're like Enron or WorldCom. But it puts everything in its tidy little spot, right? Like, and I can see it's an organization system. It's a Marie Kondo for what's been going on, and you can organize it however you want to. But a prequel isn't the movie, right? It's all of that future stuff of how is this going to work out, getting rid of that discomfort and having a plan for that next step that gets you toward an actual goal, not just an arbitrary, because this is the way it's always been.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I love the movie analogies too. That really helps us understand. So when you start working with a client, a small firm architect, interior designer, building designer, and contractor, what's the first step? And I know there's probably, and it depends, but where do we begin the process of figuring these things out?
Where are you? Status quo. What's been going on? What's on your mind? What's been stressing you out? What are you worried about? A lot of people are scared that the train is coming to hit them, right? They don't know when. They don't know if for sure that it's actually coming, but there's that fear in the back of their head that I'm not going to be able to pay my staff. I'm not going to be like, I'm doing this wrong. There's something that I don't know, that I can't see, and everybody else knows it and I don't. And so we just need to figure out where you're at, right? Like, are your books in order? If not, we need to clean them up so we can see what's going on. But then truly the next step is, okay, this is where you're at. And now where is it that you want to be? And we need to reconcile the two. What are the levers that can get you there? So truly, what do you want? Is your business capable of doing that? Right? That's the next step of, this is the trends that you've been having. This is what you have in your pipeline. This is what you have going, the new ideas that you want to try, all of the things. Is that going to get you towards your goal? Is it capable? If we map out all of that cash, give all of your money a job for the next 12 months, is that going to get us there? And hopefully, yes. Hopefully the answer is yes. And if not, are there levers to pull? And sometimes if the answer is no, and I don't want it to, that's okay too. But that's a really good indicator that we can shift gears now and we don't have to wait for the train to hit. Yeah. And so then
the last not have the train hit.
We'd rather not have the train hit. And then the last part I've started recently integrating the last 6 months with my clients are, what are the boundaries? Like, what are you willing to do and what not willing to do? I'm willing to do 2 revisions and everything after that is going to be for a fee. I'm willing to start tracking my time to make sure that this project really is a 100-hour project and not a 400-hour project. Well, it's usually more than you assume. So what are those limitations? And that's when you really get to step into being able to tell your clients the truth face on, right? You don't have to dance around it. Facing some ugly truths maybe with your family, and you don't have to dance around it with your vendors if that's the case. And like, yep, this is the way it is. And having that objective look at things without the angst and grossness that can come along with the not knowing the train's coming. Should I be looking for that? Is it coming? Is it coming for me?
I mean, you mentioned angst, and according to the screen right now, there's about 20 people in this conversation right now, plus the 3 of us here on the screen. I imagine that 18 of those people have some angst around finances.
Absolutely.
Just guessing.
Yeah. The most common reaction I get is tears.
Oh, really?
That
makes me feel better.
With new conversations. And it's just the relief that people have somebody to talk to about these things that they really didn't want to talk to. It's like taking your clothes off in front of a stranger. It's there's some pretty personal stuff that comes with it, a lot of self-judgment that comes along with opening up your books to somebody else and asking for help. But there's some miraculous things that come out of this. I mean, I've seen some pretty brave steps that even make me tear up when I think about some of these things that some business owners have done when they just stepped up and owned where they were at and did something about it.
John Jones says, if you make someone cry, you win.
John's going to be my next target. You're next.
In the next 35 minutes, we are going to make John Jones cry. That's not the goal.
No, well, we already did that a few months ago. What's his name?
A few minutes ago, you mentioned, you talked about, I forget exactly how you said it. You talked about money having a job.
Yeah.
What does that mean exactly?
Board money is wasted money, right? So if you get a big job that comes in and you're looking at it and thinking of all these cool things that you're going to be doing with this money, you're probably doubling up on a few jobs. That dollar bill is probably given 2 or 3 different jobs when you're sitting and dreaming about this job that's going to be coming in. And so we actually want to assign each one of those dollars. Okay, you are for owner pay. You are for bonuses. You are for paying that vendor long before it comes in the door. I recently had an experience, lesson learned, more boundaries. All these lessons are lessons in boundaries. A client I never should have taken. It was a favor for a friend, all of the things. And I ended up losing like $13,000. And that $13,000 had a job. It had a job to do. And so when I realized that I was not going to get paid for my work, it's like, okay, so if those jobs aren't covered by that money, what's next? Like, where do I go get it? Do I need to go get it? Is that a job that needs to be filled? In what it looks like in real life. Okay, I'll give you some solid, like what it looks like. It's a spreadsheet because everything in my life is a spreadsheet because they're sexy. I can see everything. So I have all of my money coming in for the next 12 months. I have it, what's solid, what's projected, what I hope to do, new projects. I have all my money going out, giving it a job inside the business, but also the job of paying taxes, the job of paying my family, the job of my top 3 goals and how I'm saving for those and hiding the money. So it actually has an assignment. This is what you're going to be used for before it ever comes in the door. When I wasn't doing that, it was pretty embarrassing to call myself an accountant and then have the money problems that I did. My money needed a job.
So is that then the basis of your tracking system?
Yeah.
Every dollar having a job?
Yep. Profit First is part of that, right? Like Profit First does a great job of profit, owner pay, tax, operating expenses. That's where this money is going. But it's also ties into those having the goals, going back to what is this actually for? I give the example of, I have a friend who lives down in Arizona. She's lived there for like 11 years now. And she keeps saying, I'm going to move back home. I'm going to move back home in 3 years. In 3 years, I'm moving back home. She's never going to move back home. It's not going to happen because she doesn't protect the progress of actually making the move. She says 3 years because that's how long it would take to save up that money. Well, if you're not actually putting that aside, I see it on my sheet. I know where to go put that money. So it's not even tempting anymore. So it's like Profit First on steroids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if you're joining us, if you're listening in on this conversation, first of all, welcome. Glad you have joined us for this EntreArchitect Context and Clarity Live with Megan Dahle. Megan has mentioned Profit First a couple of times in the last minute or so. If you're not familiar, that's a book by Mike Michalowicz. Mike Michalowicz has been a guest on Context and Clarity Live now twice. And I say this not to fanboy too much, but there's not a Mike Michalowicz book that you shouldn't read. Mike's, in my opinion, Mike's superpower is taking complex business problems, distilling them down into their most simple form, and developing simple systems to solve those business problems. Profit First is exactly what it sounds like. It's about taking the money for profit first. Profit's not a bad thing. You know, we could obviously dig into that, but it is definitely a book that is worth investing in, not only in purchasing it, but reading it and implementing it. So,
or listening to it. Mike does a great job on the audiobook too.
Oh, he does.
Yeah,
he does.
Yeah, I like it.
The bumpers. Yeah, it's like bumpers. It's like having that built-in instant look at your books and making sure that I'm okay for now. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's good stuff.
Yeah, that the when you're I'm stuck on the every dollar has a job idea. Again, as I said at the beginning, I think the 3 big questions that we hear a lot in our community is, how much should I pay myself, or how much can I pay myself? Because there are a lot of people, again, that started their firm as a sole practitioner. Maybe they're still a sole practitioner, and there's nothing wrong with that. Maybe they have 7 people or 15 people or whatever. But they started for a reason. And I know there's some of us that are still going, I've been doing this for a while, and I don't know how much I should be paying myself. That can get into the fees that I'm charging and all of these things, right? I don't know if this is worth it because I don't feel like I'm paying myself enough. When you run into situations like that with your clients, what do you talk about? What do you do? How do you help them understand what they can or should be, or what they need to do to pay themselves what they think they need?
Yeah. Should is a tough question. Should is a tough word.
Yeah.
I lean so heavily on the cash projection, whether it's like the 3-month is easier, then like the 6-month gets a little liquid, and 12 months is kind of like, but it's a plan. So I have to take into account your affinity for risk, right? I personally can't function without knowing that I have 3 months of pay sitting in a bank account somewhere that I can pay myself for 3 months. And from there, I can adjust. Like when I see that account growing, I can give myself a raise, right? And so when I know what work is coming in, I know what my backlog is, who I'm going to be billing and who I'm going to be paying, we can start moving things around and massaging things a little bit. Like, well, if I did this, would I be able to pay myself more? Or actually, I really want to do this other thing and I am willing to pay myself less to run this experiment. I love running experiments. Experiments are my favorite thing. Well, I have a lot of favorite things like ice cream, and nachos. But yeah, I want to know, like, what am I willing to give up in order to do a thing? And if I can see all of my resources in one spot, I can make an educated decision on what I can pay myself rather than, well, I think I deserve it. And it doesn't matter how I'm going to, if I hurt my company, I'm going to take it because I can. And I'm just going to close my eyes and hope that it works out for the best in the future. Like, don't look. Maybe I accelerated that train a little bit, but I don't care. I wanted it. I needed it. So it's really holistic. You got to look. And once you have that all laid out, like knowing where to go dig up more cash. What are your options for digging up more cash or burying more expenses? Can you take the time curve, like the money curve, if it's on a chart, and push out the expenses and accelerate the revenue coming in? And what would that do for the future? Does that hurt you in the future? Or do you have things that are lining up behind you already that's going to make that okay? So it's a tough question to answer without like digging into your individual spreadsheet, your cash forecast, and seeing what's going on behind the scenes there and knowing you're okay taking a risk, or you know what, I'd feel much safer if I had 6 months worth of expenses sitting there first.
6 months. I have never, ever had 6 months of expenses, or even 3. I just wing it every single day. So when you talk about experiments, what kind of experiment do you mean?
Oh, like marketing experiments or hiring experiments or a new product line, new way of serving your client type experiments. There's so many people lining up to take your money to run experiments in your business. Let me tell you.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
Yeah. So we want to cherry pick them before we choose one.
It would seem like the cash projections would be the easy thing because it's not real. You just make it up. Isn't that easier?
I prefer we don't just like pull things out of thin air. And that's one of my things. I'm a cheerleader, right? Like I love my clients and I'm rooting for them to do their best. And when they tell me that they have 5 $500,000 projects lined up in the next 3 months, I have a little note written to myself that says, slow down. Like, okay, we need to look at the probability of each one of these and what happens if only one comes in. What happens if 3 come in? And what are the contingency factors for each one? What happens if all 5 come in? Does that mean that we need to start hiring? But just being aware of what the future could look like under different routes is so helpful and so soothing.
Soothing. Well, I don't know if that's the word I would use, but
well, you want to try it.
If it gives you, if that understanding gives you comfort, is it soothing?
So I once had a client, and this is the one that makes me cry. And she was from rural town, small town. And she had a warehouse, she had a studio, she had an employee, and she was pretty much working to pay her employee and not being able to pay herself. And she had dug herself such a deep hole that she couldn't even see the light. She didn't know what direction her shovel was facing. And when she came to me, it was like caught in my throat telling her, you have to sell your warehouse. You have to fire her employee, who happened to be her sister. Mm-hmm. And she was going through breast cancer treatments at the time. But that was the direction of the light. We had to get some of those liabilities off the balance, some of those cash obligations. It wasn't sustainable. And so it was keep digging, and we're going to find ourselves in bankruptcy in 6 months. And what happened is that she did it. I mean, she did it. Could you imagine living in the small town where everybody knows all of your business and you have to wave the white flag and sell it and fire your sister?
Who's going through breast cancer treatments?
Why going through breast cancer treatment?
Well, was the woman herself going through breast cancer treatments? Oh, okay. I thought her sister was, which makes it a little bit better. Worse.
But she did it. And 6 months later, her business was thriving. It was thriving because she was able to let go of all of the shoulds and the oppression of having it like predetermined for her what her business had to look like. And once we lifted the veil of, you can go outside this box. It doesn't have to be like this. You don't have to just do more and more and more of the same to try to get ahead. Like, once the oppression of what you should and people think you ought to do is gone, you get this freedom to experiment with, well, what actually could be instead.
Going back to what you were saying in the beginning, the reason that what's the reason? What is it that you're trying to accomplish here as the starting point? And then, as you just said, looking at things holistically, because again, I'm not throwing anybody under the bus. I include myself in probably all of these criticisms or all of these examples. I think there are a lot of us that are along for a ride. We were talking before we got started about podcasts and things, and I was listening to one this morning, as I told you, and it inspired me to go through and cancel two SaaS products that I had that I was not getting the ROI that this is directly out of the podcast interview. I canceled 2 of them today because I'm paying, whatever it was. I don't even know what I was paying, honestly. But I was getting little to no return on investment. Obviously isn't matching what I was paying. And so I canceled them. And, you were talking about digging up money and burying expenses, which reminds me, my wife's grandma used to live around the corner from us, one of them. And after she passed away, we found out that she had coffee cans of money buried in the backyard. That's not what you're talking about. But I guess I was getting rid of some of those expenses today by canceling those things. But I think it can be really hard. I think that's a great example. You sell the warehouse in a small town, all of those things. There are a lot of us that are attached to a lot of things. One of those SaaS softwares I was really attached to.
What is a SaaS software?
Software as a service. Sorry, it's all those subscriptions that you have. It's your email marketing. It's your CRM. It's your Autodesk product. It's all of those things. There are a lot of us, I think, that are wrapped up in a lot of these expenses, whether it's software or something else. You go, well, I've got to have that subscription, right? This is what I do. I've got to have that subscription. And as you pointed out in that podcast interview, and as you're talking about now, did I really? No, I just canceled 2. Do we really need to do this because of the status quo, or because this is what architects do, or have, or things like that? These are hard decisions and hard topics, but I love the fact that this is exactly what you bring up.
Yeah, I don't think especially when it comes to SaaS, those are such great low-hanging fruit. It's that 72 hours of pain, kind of like letting go of an employee. It's the 72 hours of pain leading up to it. Then you do it, and then you kind of forget that you did it. And like, oh, yeah, it's okay. It's okay. I'm still alive. Things are still functioning. Nothing's falling through the cracks. I'm alive.
Yeah, it's good to be alive.
It's good to be alive. It's good to be alive. Yeah. Sometimes naming the fear, right? I was taught this exercise by Erin File. It happened like right before COVID became a thing. And thank goodness I learned this right before she did, or before it hit, because I was trembling, like, what is going to happen to us? My husband's a teacher, that's fine, but he's a teacher in South Dakota. And how are we ever going to pay for our mortgage? What are we going to do with groceries? We're going to be destitute. And the exercise was to name 50 good things that would happen if the bad thing didn't happen. So if I were to go bankrupt, what were 50 good things that would actually happen? And let me tell you, the first 10 were really hard to come up with. The next 10 were okay. And the next 30, like bang, bang, bang. My husband came home that day and I was like, we're going to declare bankruptcy and it's going to be awesome. And he's like, what are you talking about? Granted, we never had to or anything, but it was really good to like get me out of this wallowing, what if. I was safe. I was fed. I had a roof over my head. I have a happy, healthy family. Like, I was so down in the dumps about what could be in the future that wasn't even a reality yet, that I needed something to shake me out of it. And it was fantastic. It was a really great exercise.
So can I just make sure I wrote that down correctly? So name 50 good things that would happen if the bad thing happens.
Yes. That wouldn't otherwise happen.
That wouldn't otherwise happen.
That wouldn't otherwise happen.
Do you mind if I ask for an example on that? If you went bankrupt?
Yeah, sure. So student loan, there are ways to get rid of your student loan through bankruptcy. And like, I could have it gone. And in 7 years, like, that's off of my record. Like, it could be gone. I wouldn't have to pay that stupid check every month anymore. It'd be gone. Like, we'd have a chance at a different house. Granted, I love this house and everything, but maybe there's something else that's better out there later. Maybe we're too tied to a community where we all of a sudden could live wherever we wanted to, because there's nothing,
because you're homeless, so you're not tied down.
We could go anywhere. We could go anywhere.
Yeah. Okay. I see where you're going with that. Mm-hmm. I like that.
That's an incredible exercise. As I think more about it, there is, I'm not a scientist. I'm not a neuroscientist, but I love studying neuroscience, especially as it relates to branding and marketing, which is my corner of the world. And there is, there are studies on the neuroscience side that talk about the fact that simply naming the fear, saying it out loud, allows your brain to move it from one part of the brain to another part of the brain and actually feel some relief and satisfaction simply by saying, whatever that fear is. Hey, I think we're going to have to file bankruptcy. Your brain actually responds positively to that, which seems kind of bizarre, but I think it's probably in the realm of that exercise. Now that I think about it.
Yeah. It's kind of fun. And even thinking of it now, I'm like, what would happen if we could just leave town?
Here we go.
Well, Christian and I actually also want to know, what's the first thing we need to do so we can afford to hire a virtual CFO?
Well, like, why would you want to hire a CFO? That's the first question. Like, what is the outcome that you want out of it? And have that, like, articulate that outcome. And when you are talking to virtual CFOs, like, this is my primary reason why I'd like to hire you. Is this a result that you can help me with? And is that ROI worth it? Right? They're going to name a price for you. It might be less than you are imagining. So you need to know ahead of time what it is worth to you, so that you're not talked into anything necessarily that you might not need, or that the outcome that you're looking for would actually be better served by a bookkeeper, or your outcome would actually be better served by an executive coach or an executive assistant or that type of thing. That's what you're looking for.
let's pause there for a second. What's the difference between a bookkeeper and a CFO? So just so we know.
Yep. So CFO, think of it on a timeline, right? Like if this is today and this is everything historical, like your bookkeeper is your Marie Kondo. She's putting everything in their right spot, making it all shiny, right? And you get your financial statements, which that's a whole nother conversation about why they're a little bit useless. You get your financial statements, you get your income statement, your balance sheet, cash flow, whatever, AP, AR. What's missing, what people like stay up about at night is that future looking, I want to try this experiment. I want to do this thing. I want to pay myself. I want to hire, but I'm not sure how all these different levers are going to work together. I want a better understanding of what's coming down the road for me in my business. I want to be able to see it and plan for it. So your CFO is going to be able to like find all of the resources and put them all in a format that you can see and read and start looking at 3 months, 6 months, 12 months down the road.
And so thank you for that. And sorry for interrupting. And so you were talking about figuring out what you wanted to get out of it, what the ROI is out of it. And then somebody, virtual CFO, is going to name a price.
Yeah, so there's different methods of working with CFOs. I, for one, work like I do a very intense front-loaded month with my clients because I want to know all the secrets, all the dead bodies, where they're buried. I want to know everything, and so that's a little bit more intense. And then sometimes it turns out that just coming back once a quarter, once every 6 months, once at the end of the year is good enough. Sometimes they want that hand-holding of every month, which I'm extremely sensitive. And I think you'll find this with most people in accounting. They're extremely sensitive to the cash position of their clients, right? They're not going to do anything to ever harm their clients. I would hope that they would never do anything to harm their clients. And we would know better than anybody by looking at it and saying, you know what? Actually, I think you'd be better off going and really concentrating on your marketing right now, or developing your skills on retaining your clients and keeping them happy.
That's another thing that I find fascinating about what you do, again, with the connection to profit first. And for those of you that know Mike Michalowicz, you've got profit first, and then you've got fix this next, which I think really kind of gets into this conversation as well. As you're talking, you're not, you just kind of whispered basically that the financial statements aren't all they're made out to be necessarily, but you're talking about more than numbers, right? You're looking at a very holistic. I guess it could all be boiled down to numbers, but maybe you need to concentrate on your marketing, like you said. Maybe you need to do this or that. Janine says a bookkeeper is like a builder. The CFO is like the architect. There's a nice analogy there.
I love Janine. She's great.
There's a family connection in the audience all of a sudden. Looking at things holistically, again, how much can I pay myself? How much should I pay myself? Which should is a hard word. How do I make more profit? How do I know when I can afford to hire somebody? And like,
granted, like the CFO isn't going to hand you these answers, right?
Yeah.
They are going to give you the perspective, the more objective perspective, so you can see all of the moving pieces ahead of time to make that decision for yourself, right? Yeah. It's really hard to make a decision based on nothing. Like, when my husband comes home and he's like, what do you want for dinner? I don't know. If you could just give me 3 options, that would be super helpful, because my brain is fried by now. I'm done. Just give me 3 options: Chinese, Indian, Japanese. Just pick one. So it's that perspective where you need that am I on the right track? Are these numbers right? Are you seeing what I'm seeing? Like, is this correct? And it might be the case that, you have a lot of cash sitting in the bank, but a lot of it's already spoken for, but you don't have a system to see that it already has a job. That happens actually quite a bit in the interior design world. And in the architect, anytime that you're getting prepaid for work, that can happen too, that you get upside down on the money coming in. So it's nice to have that somebody who has your back can say, actually, did you consider this other direction before you go down that road, just to make sure that you have all the chips on the table, all the ducks in a row before you pull a trigger.
Speaking of being aware of the numbers and tracking the numbers, there have been several questions and comments about different softwares, different systems to use that are good for small businesses or sole practitioners. Do you have a preference when it comes to how people are tracking anything?
Not really. I ran my business on an Excel sheet and pivot tables for the first 5-6 years. That's fine. I come across people who are using that. I'm pretty system agnostic as long as you can see, right? That's the caveat. If you know how to run your pivot tables and make that income statement in a jiffy, and like you're using the profit first method so you can see where your cash is spoken for and what's not, fantastic. That's great. But if you need a little bit more disciplined approach, whether it's FreshBooks or whether it's QuickBooks or BQE Core, Team Excel, Chris, yeah. What's going to work for you, and making sure that it's at least at a tempo. It doesn't have to be every month. I look at my books every 6 months. It doesn't have to be, but there has to be some sort of touch base of I am on track, I am doing okay, and things aren't falling off the rails.
So what are whether it's Excel or BQE Core, whatever the preferred software is, what are the most important numbers for small business owners to be paying attention to on a weekly, monthly, quarterly basis?
That's okay. So here's the thing. Your cash is always king, but the cash on your balance sheet is not actually all your cash. The profit on your income statement is not actually cash. So truly, I don't mean to like beat the profit first. But you gotta know how much is yours and how much is spoken for. That's like straight up number one. And how much is yours? How long is it going to last for? The other things are more like hints. When it comes to, those expenses for being a 2-person firm might be getting a little out of hand. Let's run a challenge and see if we can knock out 10% of those in an afternoon. It goes back to how is your business serving you? And maybe those expenses are fun. Maybe you are having a ball in your business and you love the way that those expenses are like letting you live your life inside of your business. Fantastic. Great. I'm not going to come after them then, as long as everything else is functioning, right? But if you are taking out a bunch of loans that you don't have any way to pay back and you're credit card debt and sure, it's fun, but somebody's going to have to pay the piper after a while, it's going to take a more intense look. So I'm not going to pick out a number on your financial statements to look at other than know how much is yours and know how much is somebody else's.
Are there, speaking of how much is somebody else's, are there some really common people or pipers that we've eventually got to pay that are often overlooked? I mean, we talked about subscriptions. I think that's pretty easy, right? What are small business owners, small firm architects, designers, etc.? What are we overlooking a lot?
Anything that's habitual. Anything that's always been there, so it's there because it's always been there. Whether it's your marketing, a lot of people in smaller towns, they've always run the ad in the local paper because they like to support the local paper. But if you can't afford to support the local paper, you might need to stop running those $500 a month ads. That's the place to look. The place that you don't want to look, that's where you go digging.
Yeah, that the place that you don't want to look.
No sacred cows.
It's just challenging everything.
Yeah.
And again, I I'm stuck on this idea. Apologies to everybody, but I'm coming back to this idea. What's this business capable of? I think that's, again, maybe I'm projecting
Isn't
my
that
own
fun?
here, but
Isn't that a fun exercise though? Like, what is it
it is.
capable of? If we were to pull this lever and push that one up, if we were to take our pricing here and we were going to get strict on how many revisions that we're willing to do before we start, billing for extra time, like what would actually happen? If we were to just take a blanket 20% cut on our expenses and just hold our nose and actually get it done, like what does that actually do? What would we get to do if we were able to achieve that? And I think there's some inspiration and motivation where the things that you haven't really pulled the trigger on yet, you're kind of nervous about. Once you're able to see that long-term effect, it becomes an easier decision of, all right, I'm in, let's do it. Let's do the thing. Or the other way, like I'm very much that sounds like a super interesting like program. And I want to see what's on the inside and see the guts and gore of it. I needed something to talk me off the ledge. And having that discipline of actually, Megan, you have your next 3 experiments that you run already laid out. These are your next 3. You can put it on the list, but let's hit these 3. Did you want to knock those top 3 off the top of the list? We can, but one of them's going to have to go, so you can replace it with this other experiment. Yeah, I forget what your question was, but that's where my head went.
Well, but that's all right. I don't even know if there was even a question, to be honest. But as I'm thinking about it, two weeks ago, we talked with Ian Motley from Blue Turtle Consulting, and one of the things that he focuses on basically fee strategies, and a big component, whether it's Ian Motley or if it's Blair with When We're Pitching Manifesto, there's lots of different versions and different people talking about this, but talking about 3-tier proposal. And one of the things that strikes me about this conversation and the conversation with Ian is, man, if I really think about what's this business capable of and those levers that you're talking about, and then apply that to the 3 tiers, what do I really want to do? A 3-tier proposal, I think a lot of us are going, okay, well, here's the top tier and it's got the biggest scope in it. And here's the middle one, it's got a little less scope. And here's the lowest one that's sort of like, permit set or whatever, the minimum, the minimum that supports a professional service. If I change that to what do I really want to do, and mesh that with what you're talking about, and you're talking about business, but I'm talking, okay, what is this business capable of? What do I really want to do with it? How about we put that into everything that we do? How about we put that into our proposals and say, you know what, I hate doing that. Great, let's don't put it in one of those tiers. I really love doing that. Let's put that in one of those tiers.
And I have somebody for you that can take care of that one thing that I don't want to do.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's a lot of power in that question that you ask.
Is that crunching numbers right there?
I forgot it. We're supposed to start with that question.
When I think of crunching numbers, I think of people trying to manipulate their numbers to make it work anyway because they've already made the decision.
Oh, okay.
The decision's been made. They're just looking for the cash to do it.
Okay, I know that. I know about that kind of thing. All right.
Yeah.
Just making the numbers work, basically.
Yeah, make it work.
Yeah.
I think that's actually the code name for the new cereal that General Mills is about to release.
Crunching the numbers. As opposed to sharpening your pencil, that just means like getting more precise numbers, right? Ooh. Is that what that one means?
Yeah, digging in and yeah, sure. I buy it.
I have clients who say that a lot. Perhaps you'd like to sharpen your pencil. Like,
yeah.
Okay. Sharpen.
I don't even use a pencil.
Pretty sharp. Yeah. I have an Apple Pencil. Sharpen that.
Don't put that in the pencil sharpener.
This is all very inspiring.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, like numbers can suck. I think we're culturally told math is hard and boring and all of the things, and it can be some drudgery and it's hard to sit down and get your books done. But if you're like looking at it for what's in it for me, because so much of it is compliance, reporting, taxes, blah, blah, blah. But if you have the perspective of what's in it for me, what do I get to do because of what I've learned, I think it's fun.
Yeah, I think that's a really excellent point. Right? You're, again, going back to the very beginning, you're giving meaning to all of these numbers and all of these things that we're considering, which obviously I'm stuck on this idea, but I think that's the reason that a lot of the people in this audience started their businesses, right? There's a reason. It's supporting their lifestyle, their family, their desire to work 80 hours a week instead of 70 hours a week, or work 40 hours a week instead of 80 hours a week, or spend more time with their kids or travel or whatever. That to me is where it meshes up with the, there's meaning behind all of these levers that you're going to pull, and all the lines on the Excel spreadsheet, and all of that.
Yeah.
If anybody else has found this inspiring, and I'm pretty sure there's a couple that have, there's a healthy side conversation going on there in the comments. There's a couple sisters arguing back and forth a little bit, or at least bantering back and forth. Megan is also going to be a speaker at the EntreArchitect Community Annual Meeting, which is our first ever live conference for small firm entrepreneur architects, November 1st through 3rd in Austin, Texas. That's how Megan and I first got to talk, was last week. I interviewed her for the Meet the Speakers series. So if you found this inspiring and you want to know more, go to EntreArchitect.com/annual meeting and sign up for the conference. You can meet Megan in person.
It's going to be so fun. I had my business partner. She's coming now too. I got her to get our plane ticket yesterday too. So.
Awesome.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really will be. There's a great speaker lineup. Again, EntreArchitect.com/annual meeting. You find out all about the conference, November 1st through 3rd in Austin. But you'll find out about all the speakers as well. And obviously Megan, and information on her talk is on that page as well. I know that you have several offerings on your website, Megan, which, by the way, is megandahle.com, MEGANDAHLE.com. I'll put that in the lower left here in just a minute. But there are maybe five offerings there on your website. What are one or two of the things that that people really need to think about taking advantage of?
If you are anywhere near considering hiring somebody, hiring for profit is a really inexpensive way to work through that. Shouldn't I exercise? And otherwise, I actually don't really like to put people through it until they make an appointment. There's a link right there where we can chat for 15 minutes and I can tell you what would be the best route for you. Because everybody's in a different boat and I don't want to steer you wrong.
I love that. That's one of the great things and one of the most frustrating things about having conversations like this. We were talking about this morning. Code comes up, business entities come up, licensure comes up. There's certain errors and omissions, our insurance, all those things come up, and the answer to everything ultimately is it depends.
It depends. It depends.
Yeah. So, but talk to Megan. megandahle.com. The URL is in the bottom left corner of your screen right now. As you can tell, this is not boring. This is not it's not something to be feared. I think you have a lot of fun.
Oh yeah,
Megan.
we have fun.
Maybe even eat some ice cream or some nachos. Who knows? Megan, thanks a lot for joining us for this conversation today. It was fantastic.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much. This was really fun.
And thanks for being part of our community. Again, Megan is no stranger to the EntreArchitect community. She's got a whole bunch of friends here from the Architects and Allies Mastermind group that she's part of, and there's a lot of great banter going on there. So thank you to everybody out there. Of course, Katharine, thank you for co-hosting this conversation with me today. Next week, if I click over to this tab, it'll tell me that next week, our guest for Context and Clarity Live will be Ray Brown. He's over in Australia. He's from Archibiz. So we'll talk with Ray next week about marketing, generally about marketing and business development for architects. So I will announce more about that on Saturday as usual. And you tell me what you want to talk about next week for all of our Context and Clarity conversations. But until then, we will continue talking about finances for your firm. And our question tomorrow, both on Clubhouse at 9 a.m. Eastern and tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern for our Context and Clarity conversation inside the EntreArchitect community Facebook group. The question for tomorrow is, what are you doing to increase your profitability? So that's what we'll talk about tomorrow. It'll flow right out of this conversation today.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. I say that so positively.
Yeah.
That is absolutely what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see. We'll see how it goes. Thanks, everybody. Thank you for this opportunity for this conversation. Thanks for making Context and Clarity a thing, because without you, we would not have had the opportunity to have this conversation with Megan today. So okay.
We don't know.
It's time to wrap this up. And I have no idea how John Jones did that. Australia. Yes, down under. Okay, I get it. I don't know how you did that. We're going to need a tutorial.
I think it's a foreign language keyboard, so it's like upside down question mark. Well, anyway, we don't want to get distracted. Sorry.
I think you just turn it upside down and type it. I don't know. No. Anyway, with that, thanks everybody. Appreciate all of you. Please take care of yourselves. Be well, stay safe. Take a little bit of time to breathe, relax, find a way to rejuvenate. We do this every day. It's a long game. Thanks for playing the game with us. Thanks for going along the journey with us, and hope we'll see you somewhere sometime soon. Thanks, everybody.